Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's July 3rd, 2019. I'm out inside of the future greenhouse right now. And I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on a project I've been working on the last couple of days. Sort of been working on many different jobs. I've had to do some weeding in the gardens where there's going to be a garden update coming up soon. Weeding in the area where we got the perennials started, the hardwood cuttings. I've done a lot of hauling of manure. I hauled over 30 loads of manure over a week's period of time, so it's going to be a very large composting system, the biggest one I've done so far. And I ended up having to spend a lot of time working on the driveway, trying to reshape, remove all the sod on the margins of the driveway and alongside the house. I've got quite a bit more to do to ensure a good crown, good gravel base, and there'll be a video on all of these topics ultimately. But a couple weeks ago, I saw my neighbor. He had his contractor over there. I contacted him and said, geez, you know what? I need to get some aluminum fascia. Do you have an aluminum brake? And he said, yes, I've got one. I said, maybe you can come over and give me an estimate for doing the aluminum fascia around the work area and coop area, which are necessary to get that finished before putting up the building where I'm standing right now. So last year, and I'll post a video, I put a video up, putting the white vinyl soffit all the way up around this building. And after removing bird nests and all, and there were a couple bird nests there this time, so I had to wait until the fledglings were fledging and actually moving out. We just had a couple more days before the final nest where the birds would be ready to go, but I just moved their nests for now. And so when I contacted the neighbor's contractor, he came over, took a look at it, he says, you know, I'm going away in a couple of weeks, but I'm really booked up until September. And do you want to rent it? And so he says, while I'm away for his vacation, he's renting the aluminum brake to me. Now this is my first time ever bending aluminum, using an aluminum brake for making the aluminum fascia around the building. Is it ideal? No. I could see now as I've been going along how I would modify things a bit. But the fascia is up. I just got it put up a few minutes ago. It's very secure. I think it looks okay. I'll probably take the GoPro camera and just go around it so you can get a closer view of it as well. I'll include that towards the end of the video. But I thought I'd take you inside of the shop and show you the brake and a table that I made, and how I made it a little bit easier for one guy to work with it who's never worked with an aluminum brake before. So let's go in the shop. Okay, I'm inside now, and I've got the overhead door closed. The reason that I did all the work inside is because we're really prone to getting decent winds here all the time. There are some barn swallows in here, so you may see them flying around and hear them chirping like that right now. And so a couple of things. I used 2 rolls of double white-sided aluminum fascia. They're 24 inches wide and 50 foot long, I believe. And since it's so flimsy to work with and such thin gauge, there's a couple of things I knew I wanted to do. First, this is the aluminum brake that I've been using. This is a Mark 1 series, 1-800-VAN-MARK in case you're interested in finding out about it. The unit is sitting on top of some horses here, some aluminum horses. This part here, this is what holds the aluminum down, so this holds it down. There are little stops in the back part so you can keep consistent the depth. So I made a lot of sheets that were 6. I ended up cutting the 24-inch wide sheets into some 6-inch wide pieces and 8-inch. So I just made my adjustments to the stops on it, lock the piece down, use this to bend it and create a 45, a 90, whatever degree angle, or if you want to have it be 180 degrees and fold it back on itself, you bring it all the way up like this. That makes it so that it's almost like this, and you release the brake, you feed it back underneath it, lock the brake down on top of it, and it takes that angle and just bends it down on itself and gives you a fold that, instead of the metal being so flimsy like this, This is where there's a 180-degree bend on it. So you may be able to see this, may not. The aluminum comes down and reflects back on itself. It's 3/4 of an inch wide, the piece that I just created. So in order to do this job, I elected to create a work surface for cutting the aluminum. And so I decided to cut them 10'3" in length. That'd give me 3 inches overlap, and use consistent 10-foot long pieces. I used 2 1x12 rough cut lumber, screwed to multiple pieces of 2x3s all underneath it, set on top of a couple of short horses. I put a piece of plywood at one end so that when we're rolling it out, that roll wants to keep going, so it stops it at that end. I put a stop at this side that is perpendicular to the center line or the edges of this working table. And I put a mark on the board on the edge of it at 10'3", so I could just use a T-square or like a sheetrocking tool, use a utility knife, sharp blade, make 3 scores across the same location, and then fold the piece, and it would cut rather easily. And there'd be some GoPro footage of this. So now I've got a 10'3" long piece of aluminum that's 24 inches wide, which is much wider than anything that I need to use. So I did some measurements out there, and I realized, although the boxed end corners where the peak of the roof meets the level surface of the sides of the roof, those I need a full 24 inches in depth in order to cut that down. But on the level soffit all the way around the fascia there, well, I only needed them to be 6 inches wide. That way I could get 4 pieces out of every 24-inch piece. On the gable ends, the peak ends, where the pitched roof is, I needed to cut the 24-inch piece into 3 pieces, which gave me 8 inches each. So with the 8-inch piece, what I ended up doing, so this is it. This is the part that goes up and down along the peak. We end up having a hem on the end of it, which is a piece of aluminum that's bent basically once. That's bent initially from a piece that's like this. That's 90 degrees, but it's bent like this, probably 120, 130 degrees, or 140 degrees, so it's bent like this. Then I put that piece underneath the brake again, fold it down, and that makes it like a sandwich, which really reinforces it an awful lot. So once I had that 3/4 of an inch fold over, which was a total of 1.5 inches, then I decided to make it sit a full 1 3/4 inches underneath the board. That covered more than the 3/4 of an inch fascia board, and it really covered all the screws that are holding the vinyl soffit up. So that's what I use for going on the peaked ends of the building. Around the rest of the area, I used a 6-inch piece of aluminum. I cut 4 of these out of each 24-inch sheet, and I put 2 45 or about 50-degree bends. They're both opposing each other. Then the second bend that I put in, and you start from the outside, so I put this 45 to 50-degree bend in first, then put this 45 to 50-degree bend in the opposite direction. So now the undersurface of this surface is parallel with this surface. And then I went over 3/4 of an inch, the thickness of the fascia board, and put in a 90-degree bend going up here. So that gave me 2 1/4 inches out here and 3 3/4 inches here, which would fit up underneath the metal, the sheet metal roofing fascia flashing piece there. So everything would look nice, and this would fit nicely up against the vinyl soffit underneath. The part that was somewhat challenging is figuring out how to create a single piece that would box 3 sides around each of the places where the corners were. So what I ended up doing was going out and I took a piece and I made a drawing of each one of the pieces, what the height was at each point, so that it would fit up underneath the sheet metal roofing and fit up underneath the other part of sheet metal roofing, because it's different. Once this is folded, it's 3 different sides. And this would be a 90-degree bend and a 90-degree bend there, and I'm not sure this is actually showing up. But I did include some GoPro footage of the process of me going through this, and hopefully this is of some value if someone hasn't, if this is going to be their first attempt of bending some aluminum fascia. First tip is find a place that's out of the wind, because you don't want to have this aluminum moving around and cutting you potentially. I did use some tin snips. I have left-handed, right-handed, and center cut tin snips. I used a lot of sharp utility blades. I used a T-square, a pencil. I wrote right on the white aluminum, and certainly I used an aluminum brake as well. And I made myself a little platform to make things easier, and I used 4 pieces of 1x6 to raise the level so that the 24-inch piece of aluminum 18 inches sticking out from the brake wasn't just flopping around. I supported that with 4 rough cut 1x6s that would support the rest of that aluminum while I was making my first and second cuts, getting the 6-inch wide pieces. So I hope this video was of some value. Give us a thumbs up if you think it was. Share it with your friends. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And there'll be some GoPro footage, some with a helmet cam of me doing a few cuts, and a GoPro shot from the side to see what it looks like, the process and all. Thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a great day. Enjoy the holiday. Bye-bye now. Okay, this is the box for the coupe soffit box, the aluminum that wraps around the frame at the base of the eaves. And here's the one that I'm going to do for the opposite side. So what I did was I took some measurements from the sections, and of course this will be a 90-degree bend, and this will be a 90-degree bend, and this will go flush up against the coupe wall. And so I took some measurements all along the way, so I just have to add them up so I make my length here. I rolled it out on my plate. So 17 3/8 plus 3 inches is 20 3/8 plus 19 is 39 3/8. So I wrote that down over here, and I'll end up putting a section below either 3 or 3 3/4 inches, and I'll explain that as I go. But the first thing I'm going to do is cut this to length so I've got just a section to work with. Then I'll start patterning this system out. So 39 3/8. Okay. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is put my base. This is the part that's going to be bent back underneath the covering the vinyl soffit. So I'm going to want to have 3 inches here. Yep, 3. Then we want to do 17 3/8 or 20 3/8. And then this is 19 inches, which is correct here. So let's mark those spots. So far, these are all bending locations. So this is where the sheet will fold. This will go underneath this will go underneath the side fascia. This is going to be the angle cut, and this is going to be going up against the work area. Okay, so we've got those. Now I know, go back to here. So this one's going to be 19 inches. And this one's going to be 12 inches. This is going to be 3 inches. This is also going to be 12 inches. Okay, let's scroll out those marks. Okay. Okay, let's just double check. 3 3/4. inch. Okay. First, is it the right one? It's one I circled. That's correct. Length is correct. 3 1/8 instead of 3 3/4. 3-inch height here for folding underneath the west wall soffit. This is the east wall fold. This is the south wall. This is a 12-12 pitch, and I believe that that's all correct. We got to notch out that section there. So let's start our cutting. Make 3 passes, and then let's really important to use a nice sharp utility blade for these cuts. Now I can easily hold this section down with the clamps holding that part down. Again, start it right at the point where I'm going to be cutting. Three cuts. So using a C clamp or a J clamp or an F clamp, whatever type of clamp you deem appropriate, works out with setting up so you can make these cuts. So I've scored this one. This one I'm going to fold, but before I can fold it, Oh, shoot. Dang it, Kevin. Okay, so this is the outside. So this fold is going to go underneath. This folds underneath. This folds underneath. So I need to mark the other side. So I marked the other side. So let's see if we can make the first fold here. How did I do this before? Right down here. Okay, first thing I want to do is get this so I get my 3/4 of an inch fold. Alright, so this is going to be folded back on itself. I'm going to completely flatten that right down to give the unit much more rigidity. And I'm going to do it twice so that I get the very end of it. Okay, now so this fold here, which is 180-degree reinforcing tab, which really makes it much stiffer underneath the covering the vinyl soffit. So now I need to bend this up just over 90 degrees. So when this is parallel with the ground, that's 90 degrees, but it's not quite at this side. It is at that side, so I always go over. So it actually bends up a little bit. One more time. Okay. So this is what we've got so far. So now we've got to make a couple of bends here.